Good afternoon. My name is Silvi Fadilla Ramadhani, and my lesson number is 123. So today I'm going to present my work with the title The Portrayal of Youth Anxiety of Death in Mathew Arnold's poem Youth and Calm by applying Michael Rivathere's theory. So before we begin, let's start with the table of content first. So there are introduction, focus of analysis, issue, results and analysis, conclusion, and the last one is works cited. So now let's just start with introduction. Okay, the poem that I decided to analyze in this is Youth and Calm by Mathew Arnold. So in the Victorian period, Mathew Arnold was one of the poets who gave special attention to youth and the dynamics of young culture. Living in a stimulating era, Arnold wrote writings that can be considered as historical records, if not factual, a society's reaction to basic social and cultural development of the time. And the literary world was especially affected as the Victorian period signaled by the beginning of poets and artists like shedding the romantic spirit that they had breathed into their works and adapting to the technical and industrial reality around them. So this poem, Youth and Calm, examines a stream of consciousness that considers the youth and their dreams, as well as also the youth and their anxiety of the thought of death. Now we're moving on to the focus of analysis. Okay, the poetry will be analyzed using heuristic and hermeneutic reading that has a relation with reading of verse based on language convention and overall rereading with interpretation. So in semiotic literary studies, the search for meaning can be done by reading heuristics and hermeneutics. Heuristic reading is a way of reading in the first level semiotic system, which is a language-based way of reading, seen from the normative system of language. It is a reading that goes from beginning to end of the text, from top to bottom of the page, and follows the syntagmatic unfolding. The activities are noticing words, lines, certain terms of the text semantically. And the next one is hermeneutic reading, which is a way of reading in the first, second level semiotic system. And it is a way of reading literary works based on literary conventions. And it is an activity of finding the meaning of what has been done in the first reading. By using interpretation, association to get the significance, this stage is a retroactive reading, which is a time for a second interpretation, cited by Rivatherer, 1978, 5-6. So the poetry will be analyzed using semiotic Michael Rivathere's theory, and will interpret the meaning of the poem and focus on the three components, which are displacing, distorting, and creating. Displacing of meaning happen when a sign have a change from one meaning to the other meaning. Generally, the application of figurative language such as metaphor, personification, and metonymy. Well, the second component is distorting. So distorting of meaning or deviation of meaning happen because of ambiguity, contradiction, and nonsense. Ambiguity is a word, phrase, or a sentence that have a different interpretation in meaning context. Contradiction is a using of irony and paradox, while nonsense is a word that has magical meaning in context. And the last one, we have creating. So when the textual space serves as a principle of an organization for making science out of linguistic items that may not be meaningful otherwise, for example, symmetry, rhyme, and etc. So in this case, the relation of the text and the reader plays important roles in interpreting the meaning as a whole. So that is my focus of analysis. Now we're moving on to the issue that I have decided to use here, which is the portrayal of youth anxiety of death. So why did I choose that issue? It's because in this poem, Mathew Arnold provides his view of youth that they are not only against the real aspect that certain themes have to offer, but they are against nature as well. The conception of one's final journey, which is death, despite the fact that death appears to be quite peaceful with a lot of serenity, youth, on the other hand, does not wish to live in it. The life that shines and is full of dreams that they still have to achieve makes them not ready yet to meet death itself. So now we're moving on to results and analysis. The first one is symbolism. So displacing of meaning. I discovered metaphor, which is a figure of speech that directly compares one thing to another for rhetorical effect. And I cited the crowning end of life and youth, and when this boon rewards the dead. So the concept of death here is represented with a crown, which is provided as an action verb derived from its physical concept and value as a sign of reward for completing one's life's purpose. And the next one is a wine of promise and repose. So here, youth, on the other hand, is characterized by lively characteristics and advancing natures. One of the symbolization lying in youth identity, for example, is the conception of wind, in contrast to death, which is portrayed as a condition in which individuals are resting, and youth have the characteristic of constantly moving and free, just like the wind. And the next one, I have this death and peace indeed is here, and is from shame and rest from fear. So in this poetry, the state of dying is also portrayed similar to the actual act of someone taking a rest. This emphasized the poem's perspective in illustrating death activity, which is purposefully resting. So after living life in this world for a long time, finally at the end of the day, they have completed their paths in life, so they can rest now. And the next one is, this all perhaps rich man acquires, but this is not what our youth desires. So here is an example of how, despite the fact that death appears to be quite peaceful with a lot of serenity and peace, youth, on the other hand, does not wish to live in it. A life that shines and full of dreams makes them still want to achieve that and not ready yet to meet death. And here is metonymy, which is a figure of speech in which one object or idea takes the place of another with which it has close association. And what I cited here is, and is the heart of youth so light, its step so firm, its eyes so bright. So here, body components are used to describe youth, To begin, the youth are shown as having a beautiful heart, and this is followed by remarks of how their behaviors are clean and their glances are shining and enlightening. So these metonyms are essential in illustrating a more lively condition of youth than those condition of death. And the next one is personification, which is when human characteristics are given in something that non-human. And what I cited is a wind of promise and repose. So the natural object of wind here is personified and humanized by placing the terms promise and repose in it. These two features show how wind represents a living character, which Arnold uses to portray youth. And next, I have distorting of meaning, and I discovered a contradiction, which is the statement of a position opposite to one that already made. So Arnold's portrayal of contradiction can be found in how he presents death, how he represents death, which is not a terrifying death, but full of peace, rest, and the ending of a long life. Nevertheless, this is not what the youth desire. While death is considered as a calming thing for the soul, they still want to live their lives and accomplish their ambition and their dreams. So now is heuristic reading. My analysis is, after reading the poem, I believe it was interesting, intriguing, and detailed. And the language and vocabulary used are mostly everyday languages that are clear and understandable. Nevertheless, I discovered there's a difficult and uncommon word that I find it hard to get the meaning of the context itself, such as limpid bro. However, the use of this term did not interfere with my understanding to the context and the story itself. Okay, so now we're already arrived in conclusion. So to conclude, by applying several methods, which are heuristic reading, displacing, distorting, and creating meanings by Riveter, I have analyzed an intrinsic element in the story named symbols. Through displacing meaning, I discovered several metaphors, personification, metonymy, while through distorting meaning, there is contradiction. And from the heuristic reading, it is indicated that the story is fairly detailed and the language is easy to understand. And it is written in everyday language. However, there is a difficult and uncommon word that I find it hard to get the meaning of the text. Furthermore, the issue of the poem is the portrayal of youth anxiety of death, despite the fact that death appears to be quite peaceful with a lot of serenity. Youth, on the other hand, does not wish to live in it. The life that shines and full of dreams that they still want to achieve makes them not ready yet to meet death itself. And thus the theme here is the serenity promised by death cannot compete with a life full of dreams. So yeah, this is the work cited, and that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for the attention, and have a good day. Bye.